All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you all for being here. Wow, it's a Friday, and I am overwhelmed. All of you who have taken time out of your worship for the new Democratic Party under Kamala Harris to be here today. Wow, yeah, I know you feel it. Everybody's feeling it. All you Democrats are feeling it. And I don't blame you. I thought it was quite impressive last night, and this week has been quite impressive. We'll break down some of the messages and the way in which Kamala Harris, I thought, so effectively laid out her case almost as a prosecutor last night, but also how she changed something critical in the way she went after Trump or described or defined Donald Trump. I thought that was a tactically important speech from that standpoint as well. First, let's welcome in Kim, everybody.
Kim, how are you?
Kim, how is
Good morning.
Kim?
I'm a little slow today. I've got a DNC hangover.
I see. So Kim continues to be, what am I trying to say, Albert? She's behind the looking glass there. We don't actually see her. Albert is here.
Albert, thank you.
And he is producing today's show, which is not completely like a normal show. Here's what I mean. We'll break down the Democratic National Convention on night 4, which is certainly the crescendo night with Kamala Harris stepping up, as I say, both defining herself, the strategies for the future. It was an upbeat speech, but it also ultimately did turn a turret of attack toward Donald Trump and defined him and his administration, the past administration and the likely future administration priorities in very specific ways. Kamala Harris wasn't the only one to speak last night. In fact, it was an impressive, as it has been every night, series of speakers, and we'll get to all of them. So I'm also interested in filling you in on the fact that, like all Fridays, we'll have Friday Fabulous Florida, bottom of the hour. Top of the next hour, we'll get some politics in, and then I have to slither out to KFI Radio in Los Angeles, to iHeartRadio, and do some work over there. So Kim will take us home. I'll get the plane almost to the runway, to the landing strip, and then Kim will glide it in for a total landing. So those of you who follow such things in your hymnal, does it look like there's something on my shoulder? It looks like there's something here on my shoulder, Albert. Do you see it, Albert? It's distracting.
Maybe the glare from the lighting.
Albert, thank you.
It is, I think, just glare. Very, very good. That's why you are the producer, and I'm just the guy who's not the producer. All right. Smash the like button if you would. If you're just joining us from wherever you are in the world, we appreciate it. Very excited that Taiwan will be represented in our meetup, which is a week from tonight. We are, I believe, sold out now, but we are taking alternates. If you're an alternate for our meetup, you can do everything that a normal locking up of the seat would entail. That is, you jump onto PayPal, you make the $50 donation because it's a fundraiser for the show, you indicate meetup, and then RSVP to us at mtsmeetup@gmail.com. And we will then mail you back and say you're an alternate. If somebody drops out, whatever, you're in. I think we had an alternate last time, or a couple of alternates that we just kind of let on without any, But it's going to be pretty big. Pat Thurston, Nikki Maduro, Kim McAllister, the great Albert, the great Tony. Michael Shore should be there. Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline, Jim Avila from ABC. David Katz is going to be there, our great legal scholar. So if you have questions of one sort or another, or you want some analysis, you'll be able to do that. Or you just want to hang out, it's an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So jump on for 2 glorious hours a week from...
What?
It's a week from yesterday, a week from... I might have said a week from tonight.
Yeah, next Thursday.
It's next Thursday. Thank you, Albert. August 29th, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That's Pacific time. August 29th, 6:30 p. to 8:30 p. Pacific Standard Time. Again, we're sold out, but jump on because stuff happens, and you might end up being able to join us. It's a simple Zoom link. We send it to you, and you join us, and the world is happy. You are happy, and we're all in a better place, everyone. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I guess we should get to it. Albert, what do you have for me? You have, what order do you want to do these videos in, sir?
I have some highlights and I have some more specific clips from last night. I think we should start with the highlights, though.
All right, let's start with the highlights.
Can I just tell you that I'm sad it's over? I feel like I was so inspired and so excited. I want to log on tonight and still watch more speeches.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the day after Christmas.
It's actually Pacific Daylight Time, says Tom. And what does the graphic say? Pacific Standard Time? I've never really paid attention to it. Of course, the fabulous lady, Diane, who does our graphics, is so, already so lovely to put that together. I just always say Pacific Time. I take Daylight and Standard, and I never mention it.
Yeah,
because I just think
all my booking emails for your shows back then was just PT. I don't
PT, man. Exactly. I ain't getting into Standard Time, Daylight Time, whatever. But Tom says it's Pacific Daylight Time. So all I can say is it's Pacific Time. Yeah. All right. Let's get back, if we could, please. Tom, if you could just relax on the Pacific Time stuff. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim can't get enough of her Democratic National Convention. Oh, she's on a high.
I am.
From the Democratic National Convention. Man, a bounce in her step. Well, let's take a look back at some of what we saw. Go ahead, Albert.
The path that led me here in recent weeks was no doubt unexpected. But I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys. On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
But Kamala, she cares deep down, and she will take on the giant corporations that are squeezing American families. Groceries, gas, housing, healthcare, taxes, abortion. Trust Donald Trump and JD Vance to look out for your family. I wouldn't trust them to move my couch.
We've all lived through a lot of history over the past few years. But what we do know is this. Through it all, your life won't stop. Right now, before the crisis, is when we get to choose. Why wouldn't we choose the leader who's tough, tested, and a total badass?
Everybody over here, say karma! Everybody over here, say love.
Together!
Where others push darkness.
By the way, stop for a second, Albert. I really liked that. I thought that was a charming way to introduce to America this name and the pronunciation of the name, which is a little different than, the average name that you don't need any help or correction pronouncing. And let's face it, it's a name that's been mispronounced both deliberately and accidentally since she's been in politics.
She's the vice president and has been for a while now. I think we all know her name, right?
No, actually, that's not right, and that's why I made that point.
No,
because I think people still say, people who are Democratic allies and supporters of Kamala Harris, they still say Kamala. I still hear it.
Yeah.
So I think it was, they're not insisting on it, and I'm sure she wouldn't make a big deal on it because she's probably about it because she's used to it being mangled probably her entire life. But that said, I thought it was a charming, fun, what can I say, almost adorable way to introduce to America how to say her name properly. So I thought it really worked. Go back to the video if you would, please, Albert.
Yes.
This is
where
her sister.
others feel detachment, Kamala fosters connection. Where others want to drag us back to the past, my sister says, hold up now, we are not going back.
I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self. And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors. And its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. Let's fight for it. Let's get out there. Let's vote for it. And together, let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all.
That was a little bit of a sample of some of what you saw last night. I thought her speech was a 10 out of 10. I was astounded at how well she did because it's so difficult to stick that landing. Think about how she's had to be really perfect, like an Olympian. It's weird how the timing of this follows the Olympics, because the kind of pressure that Kamala Harris is under and her people are under is the sort of pressure that you'd find an Olympian under. No room for a wobble. And so on a night where you are the crescendo, you're the denouement, you are the climax of a 4-day march describing your values, describing the other guy, you have to do everything well. And you have to do it for a long time. This is not just I understand the speech is on prompter, but it's been crafted carefully. You still have to deliver it. I thought one of the things she did brilliantly was she expressed a confidence. Mm-hmm. She expressed almost a presidential confidence. It was a different Kamala Harris in several places along the way that spoke to the outrage she felt when she talked about the J6 rioters, and spoke to the outrage she felt and feels that all Americans should share when talking about Donald Trump and talking about Donald Trump's henchmen possibly getting back into the White House. I thought she was absolutely perfect under a huge pressure cooker situation.
I think
Kim.
it seems like, especially for a woman, and I don't know why the difference, but it seems like people are looking for something wrong, which is why you say she has to be almost perfect. And I thought she was. I was watching CNN, and they had this panel of undecided voters. They had like maybe 9 or 10 of them.
I sent you this video, Albert, the one that Kim's talking about right now. Do you have it?
Where's Albert? They all talked after the speech, and almost all of them had decided to vote for Kamala Harris. But when grading their speech, almost all of them thought she should have provided more details and specifics on how she wants to accomplish what she wants to accomplish, which I don't think she could have done in that speech. That wasn't what that speech was about. It wasn't a policy wonk speech. It wasn't like, let's get down into the nitty-gritty details. Let me tell you how I'm going to pay for all this. It was, here's my overall plan. Here's my vision for America. It was meant to uplift. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Kim is right about the idea somehow, 2 points on that this isn't the kind of speech where you sit down and break out economic policy. That way, you're going to turn off the whole audience that way. It's really an introductory speech. And so I thought she did that quite well. She addressed both her biographical background, which is important, knowing who the person is, and then she segued into a life that's been filled with an advocacy in many different ways that would reflect an advocacy on the part of Americans. So that was really good. Now let me speak to the focus group that CNN had, because I saw the same thing and I thought I sent it to Albert. people are always going to say didn't have enough specifics. Yeah. They say that the way they used to say, I used to host a show called Guinness Prime Time. People came on the show and they set these world records, and they were crazy records. People dropping out of a third-story building and into a kiddie's pool with 8 inches of water. I mean, it was that kind of crazy stuff. It was sort of fluff. Maybe the demographic targeted was teenagers and younger people who kind of got a kick out of that stuff. It was pre-YouTube, okay? And the reason I mention it is people would always say to me, I don't watch TV much, but I happened to see when that guy jumped out into the kiddie pool the other night on Guinness. People would always say, I usually only watch news, but the other night I saw that guy who balanced 3 stories worth of drinking glasses on his chin, and it was just the weirdest thing. People always say stuff that that doesn't really reflect who they are. I don't watch TV, but I only watch news, but I happened to watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills the other night, and I saw whatever. Hey, dude, you don't have to qualify it with, I don't watch much except news, or I don't watch TV. It's okay to like stuff. The focus group people, they feel compelled to say, I didn't hear enough specifics. I would have liked to hear more about the economy. I'd like to hear more about foreign policy and exactly how you would handle. No, you wouldn't. You say that, but you don't really mean it. Your eyes will glaze over when she starts to talk about the economy in really specific ways. Not to mention, as Kim has said, just evaluating the speech, it's not a speech designed to lay out all the X's and O's. And so did you find it, Albert? Yeah. Okay. So this was that focus group. Didn't mean to get, I was kind of describing it and doing that whole thing because I thought we weren't going to get the video, but now we are going to get the video. All right. Here's a little bit of this CNN focus group. Go ahead, Albert, please.
Start with a couple of things that I think she did absolutely right or that are improving for her. First of all, the podium presence is really good. I didn't think much of her public speaking before, but since she's gotten into this race, she's only been behind a podium, and she did that well tonight. So
this is not the focus group. This is just the pundits speaking. That was, by the way, a right-wing pundit. So to that extent, it was instructive, I suppose. But he was basically echoing what I said, which is that she was taking her public speaking, and we've seen her speak publicly for a long time, particularly all our Bay Area viewers and listeners. You guys know her really well. And you know that what you saw last night was another level. She has changed the aspect of who she is in terms of public speaking and addressing the nation. I was very impressed with that. Very impressed. So the group was a group of union people that were undecided. I see. Okay.
That's true. And there was, of all of them, I think there was 9 of them. Most of them decided at the end of that to vote for Kamala Harris, except 2.
That was amazing.
There was one guy who was going to go for Trump because he said he didn't think Kamala Harris was ready. He thought maybe she should wait till next time, was his words. And then there was a woman who decided she's not going to vote at all. She doesn't like either candidate. But everyone else was convinced it's Kamala all the way. So. Yeah.
So very important.
I think I might actually have it now, but we're going to just have to find out on air.
Albert, thank you.
All right. Try it, Albert. Go ahead.
Valley in eastern Pennsylvania. And we are with 8 residents of the Lehigh Valley who've been watching television with us tonight and watching Kamala Harris's speech. I do want to say they all have something in common, as you said, Anderson. None of these people before tonight have made a decision about who they will vote for in November. And at least one person here before tonight wasn't sure she was going to vote at all because she doesn't like either of the candidates. Also, what they have in common, 5 of these people, they are all 5 of them loyal union members from the UAW local, United Auto Workers here in the Lehigh Valley. So thank you all for being here. First thing I want to ask you, I want you to grade the speech, okay? A is excellent, B above average, C average, D below average. We all know what F is. Let's start with you. How do you grade the speech?
I gave her a B+.
B.
B+.
A.
B+.
A.
C. C. So mostly A's and B's with one C. I want to ask you why you made the decision you made. First of all, we start with Scott, who is the president of the UAW local here in the Lehigh Valley. Scott, what grade did you give it again? B plus. How come?
I gave her the high grade because I thought she looked very confident. I liked how she spoke from her heart. I liked her message of unity and the division that we have in America. I like her fight for the middle class and families. The reason I didn't give her an A was I thought she needed to go into a little more detail on some of her plans, of how she would, do some of the things that she envisioned.
Okay, Lindsay, you're
some
in
of that
sales.
stuff,
You're the
right.
person who wasn't sure she was going to vote for anybody because you don't like either of these two candidates. I'll ask you more about that in a minute. But first, what grade did you give the speech?
I gave it a B.
How come?
I thought it was a good speech. I mean, she did what she was supposed to do. I liked that she was talked about.
This woman
her
talks like me
upbringing,
talking
made
about
it
our
feel a
show.
little more like personal.
People always go, it was great. It was great.
Okay, Andy, you're also with the UAW. You make cars and trucks for us Americans, so thank you for that, along with the rest of you. Your grade again was?
B plus.
And how come B plus?
I liked her plan for the middle class. Like my wife's a nurse. I'm an auto worker. I'm as middle class as you can get. I just felt like she should go a little more in depth, but I guess I understand you can't really go as in depth in these speeches, but a little bit more would have been nice.
Okay, Donna is your mother.
Yes.
Donna's a retired dental hygienist. Donna, what grade did you give it again?
I gave her an A.
And how come an A?
Because she hit all the points that I wanted to know about. I wanted to know more about her economic policies, her foreign policy. I know she couldn't go into depth about that, but I mean, I felt that she looked very presidential. She sounded presidential, and I think she's going to be a unifier.
Yeah, by the way, going into tonight, Andy was 60-40 with Kamala Harris.
Yes.
You were 50-50, which is interesting. We'll talk more about that in a second. Patrick, also with the UAW. Grade you gave it again?
A B plus.
How come B plus?
Well, she was very confident in what she was saying. She showed leadership ability and understanding of the topics at hand. But again, she didn't go in depth. I did like what she said about what she's going to try to do for the middle class, about a tax break for us, which will be very nice, but still a little bit more information on some of the things that she's planning on doing.
Sean, also with the
Stop
UAW.
right there, Albert. I just want to make the point that you've
I gave her
heard
an A.
3 times so far that people responded to her confidence. They mentioned her confidence. That's exactly what I was saying when I was talking about her raising her game as a public speaker to sound almost presidential. Really an extraordinary thing if you've watched and know Kamala Harris, as so many of us on this particular podcast do know her. Go ahead, Albert.
I was looking for policy information. I really wanted to see some substantive policy information. And I thought she did give enough. I like what she gave on military, what she wants to do for our veterans, and with border control. I just think that she has a lot of good ideas, and she's very well spoken. I think she was very professional.
Sabrina is your daughter and also a UAW member, helping to make cars and trucks for America.
Yeah.
Your grade again?
A.
How come an A?
I think she was very well spoken. She was very clear on what her policies were and elaborated on them with the time given, and the fact that she's wants to bring back rights for women.
And Brian, you're in real estate. You're a nice guy too, like everyone in this panel, and you gave the only C. How come you gave a C?
She wasn't clear enough on the policies. She did speak a lot of her personal history, which was great, but I still don't feel like she's ready. I feel like more so she should wait. I don't want to per se vote for someone that is a backup.
All right. Well, but I'm going to ask you shortly.
I think the guy's reaching. He sounded a little predisposed. Here, he's going to ask him now how they changed their vote, I think, and then we're done
I
with
ask
this.
all of you all together at this point. Like I said, none of you were ready to make a commitment to any candidate in November. Please raise your hand right now if you're now ready to make a commitment after today.
So
Wow.
everybody but one
I'm
raises
just
their
kind of
hand.
surprised by it. We haven't rehearsed this. I'm going to make that very clear. They will adjust to this.
They were
of
all
you
not raising their
are
hand
now
before,
ready.
now all but one.
Scott?
Yes, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris.
Andy?
Yeah, Kamala Harris, yes.
Yes,
Donna?
I'm voting for her also.
Sean? Sean?
Yes, Kamala.
Sabrina?
Carmela.
Patrick?
Kamala.
Brian?
Trump.
Trump. And finally, Lindsay.
Still probably not voting.
She's still
You
looking
don't
for
like
the
either of
perfect
them.
man. All right. Thank you, Albert, for that. That was the undecided group of voters who watched it last night. And Kim, to return to my point about pronouncing her name,
You're right. You're
three
right.
of them
Yeah.
who are voting for her had her name wrong.
Those
one
voters
thing
are brutal. I mean, what does it take to impress you? That speech was crazy good.
Dude, the thing about these interviews, and it's why I gave you the example of what people used to say to me, and what you hear people say all the time. They're trying to say a little bit in these focus groups what they feel you want them to say or what the sophisticated thing to say might be. And I think we're all this way. You want the thing you say to be significant. So I'm not dumping on them. I'm simply trying to suggest that some of what you're hearing is a bit falling into that category. I thought the noteworthy thing in all of that, in part, and again, this extends to other things, so I'm not just x-raying the focus group, because I could give a damn on some level. It does, but on another level, it lets us sort of as a jumping off point talk about things. And one of the things I want to mention was that only one of them mentioned women's reproductive freedoms. That's a huge, huge thing, man. The Supreme Court is a huge thing. You could literally just say, I'm voting for the Democrat. I don't care who they are. Why? Because I'm trying to stop the bleeding at the Supreme Court. I don't know. I don't care what the person's name is. I don't say how they say it. Democrat. I cannot have Republicans in charge anymore for rolling back the clock on women's reproductive freedoms and on granting presidential immunity to whoever sits in the executive office. You could say that, and it's a defensible position. But only one mentioned women's reproductive freedoms in all of those people that we heard from.
I mean, that's my top issue. But if that's not your top issue, then I can understand maybe why you would be an undecided voter, because if you care about that, then there's only one choice for you. So clearly that's not their priority. That those, when they look at their list of why they would vote, that's probably not ranking very high.
Yeah, I think that's fair, that the idea is somehow that didn't land for people. They wanted to hear more about the economy, et cetera. So I thought she did a nice job of including it last night. It's certainly something of significance to many, many people in this country. And she talked about a lot of kitchen table issues when it came to the economy, the affordability of housing. And she talked about her advocacy. And I think when you look at a president as an advocate, which is something that Trump did so effectively play on in the 2015-2016 period, he played a populist message and a populist vision. I am the guy who is going to look out for you. Now, of course, it was completely false. He created false enemies, the Democrats, the immigrants, et cetera. You can have legitimate conversations about these issues, but he effectively created this notion that there were those enemies and that he was an advocate. She has a life of advocacy, right? She's been a prosecutor for the people. She talked about that. And there was even a portion of her speech last night which sounded prosecutorial. She brought the, consider this, and consider this. And that felt like a prosecutor's summation. I thought she was so very impressive. I think she's got the chops to do the job and to assemble good people around her who are competent. I thought her run on, and I thought this is such an effective way to go after Trump, as an unserious man who only cares about himself, whose client has always only been himself.
Beautiful.
That was an extremely powerful case to be made, because his history, and so now the recent history of America, is replete with examples of that. how he only really takes care of himself and his wealthy donor friends, because donors really help his number one client, which is him. So I thought that was quite impressive indeed. And in that category, there is breaking news this morning that is quite consistent with that. And I'll get to the breaking news. I'm sorry, I'll get to it in a second. But I just did want to recognize Gretchen Whitmer. Kim broke this out of Whitmer's speech. She says, one day when you're just trying to get everyone out the door, a news alert goes off. This is her just describing this imaginary moment. Something happened. Something hit the fan. You'll ask, is my family going to be okay? And then you will ask, who the hell is in charge? This is Gretchen Whitmer from last night. You'll ask, who the hell is in charge? What if it's him? What if it's that man from Mar-a-Lago? By contrast, she said, Harris is tough, tested, and a total badass. So she leaned in to the reputation which Trump now has and deserves in large measure, right? And then she's comparing it to the clear competence of Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Can I tell you something else about the speech that I wanted to make sure we talked about? The brilliance of this, of the nuance. I had called my 14-year-old daughter, she's 15 now, 15-year-old daughter in to watch history being made with me. I was overwhelmed by the fact that a Black woman is accepting the nomination to be the president of the United States. Like, to me, I mean, I'm on the verge of tears. This is amazing. We're going to gather round and watch history unfold. And then I was watching Dana Bash on CNN after the fact, and she said, as to why Kamala Harris didn't address that historic moment, really, because you didn't hear her say, you know, I'm the first Black woman, or you didn't hear her make note of the history. She talked about how Harris said that she'd seen people treat her mother differently, but she didn't talk about her own experiences with racism or misogyny or any of that. And Bash pointed to this quote from Kamala Harris's speech, where Harris said, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are. And Bash said in that way, it was Harris following her mother's example, showing people who she is, and the rest, that whole history-making moment that gave my spine tingles, it was all self-explanatory. She didn't need to cover it or talk about it at all. And I thought that was brilliant. That one reference took care of everything.
Well put, and the tactic of not making a big deal of that is, or even mentioning it really, I thought it is a standout thing because it's all there. You don't need it pointed to. And as you say, and she addressed it in her own way. I thought she also addressed Gaza in a very tough, I would say, a tough target to hit, meaning you can't mollify the groups on either side. There is a kind of dug-in reality, and it's all so grim. And she, I felt, addressed it. I don't know, honestly, what substantive changes she can make to an extremely tough situation, intractable situation. But that said, I do believe she did something that's very hard, which is she tried to take recognition of the horror that is Gaza and also the horror that produced Gaza in some measure. It's an extremely complicated situation, but I was very impressed with that as well. I'm seeing in the chat something about Putin wants Trump. I would very much agree with that. I mean, I think there is, well, first of all, there's evidence that he very much helped Trump, and there was Russian assistance in the 2016 election. And I just saw that there is a bunch of sanctions now that are targeting Russia. It's pretty wild to see Russia getting a clapback from America today. This is just breaking news of the moment. The U.S. Treasury and State Department hit nearly 400 people and entities both in and outside Russia. They also include China. This is, again, linked to Ukrainian policy and all the rest, but they specifically target those entities supporting the Russian supply chain and defense base. That's why China's included. The U.S. is also expected to announce additional security assistance to Ukraine. That'll happen later today. And so with all of these sanctions, again, directed toward Russia, it's no wonder that Putin most certainly would like to see his lapdog, I'd suggest, just based on public policy. I mean, come on. I mean, it seemed as though Donald Trump was ready to sidle up to Vladimir Putin. And that was something else that was called out last night by Kamala Harris. She said, we all know how it works. You flatter him, you praise him, and before you know it, you get what you want from him. Same thing with Kim Jong-un. So, all right. That's a little bit of what we saw last night and what we took away. I thought Adam Kinzinger was unbelievably good.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you have
great.
that video, Albert. He was throwing. Look at Albert. Finally, he's got something ready to go.
Albert, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Albert.
You guys sent me this one.
Okay, go ahead, Albert.
I was just a kid when I was drawn to the party of Ronald Reagan, to his vision of a strong America, the shining city on a hill. I was a Republican for 12 years in Congress, and I still hold on to the label. I never thought I'd be here, but listen, you never thought you'd see me here, did you? But I've learned something about the Democratic Party, and I want to let my fellow Republicans in on the secret. The Democrats are as patriotic as us. They love this country just as much as we do. And they are as eager to defend American values at home and abroad as we conservatives have ever been.
Yeah, I also thought, and it was really the preamble in a way to a moment where a bunch of veterans who serve in Congress all show up on stage. And that was a big show of veteran support to point up the fact that, and it was stated explicitly, Donald Trump has smeared veterans. Donald Trump has smeared military service. Donald Trump celebrates the symbols of service in the military, but then he smears actual veterans.
Leon Panetta made that point beautifully.
Yes, indeed. And the idea that the Trump administration would look out for veterans, it's been proven that that's not the case. It's the Democratic administrations that have bolstered the Veterans Administration. And so the symbolism associated with everybody on stage who is serving in Congress now and is also someone who gave much of their life to service in the military, it was a big moment. And they were all there at the Democratic National Convention. The Democratic National Convention had many Republicans there, right? People who had served in the Trump administration. They came to the Democratic National Convention because they feel that Trump really is a clear threat to America and American values. You heard it time and time again, speaker after speaker. It was extraordinary. You did not see that kind of crossover of Democrats to the Republican National Convention. It was absolutely a home run. That said, I remind you, I don't mean to always be the guy raining on your parade, but you have to look at the numbers and see that this is still anybody's race and anything could happen. I do think that the debate will be important. It's much anticipated, September 10th, but I don't know if it will be determinative. I do think it will be important, so we will see. Determinative would be a ding word, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. let me, before I get to Florida, Albert, I had the story of the ugliness. I mean, there's probably, let's face it, there's a lot of ugly. Trump himself kind of likes to wallow in ugly. He takes his Truth Social platform and he blasts 56 different posts criticizing Kamala Harris, criticizing the Democrats. How come I'm running against this woman? It should be Joe Biden, etc. But Ann Coulter takes the gold medal for ugly, I think.
She's despicable.
When she makes fun of Tim Walz's son. Now, she did this after the Waltz speech, so that's a full day and a half ago, right? But his, and we pointed this out yesterday, is a neurodiverse son, but that to me doesn't matter. It was a moment of intense emotion as your dad is on stage and he's accepting the nomination. And I think being in tears out of pride and out of the immensity of the moment, I think that's perfectly acceptable and should be celebrated. There is her tweet. Talk about weird, she said. But it was pointed out to her that Gus, who is the son of Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, he is neurodiverse. So he has a nonverbal learning disorder, ADHD, anxiety disorder. He's got a bundle of things that a bunch of us have. And as I say, I don't think those things needed to be explained to justify the kind of ugliness or to force an apology for the kind of ugliness, might be a better way to put it, for the kind of ugliness that she displayed. But it doesn't matter because she didn't apologize anyway. She took down the tweet, but she never apologized. So when it comes to ugly, I'm going to give her, as I say, she's the gold medalist for the last couple of days, although Trump is close. But he's sort of the backbeat of ugly in many ways. He goes personal, he goes low. And now to the breaking news about Trump money before I get to Florida.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Trump businesses. This really, Albert, this would be a chunk of Trump. I can't believe you don't have it in as a chunk of Trump. I mean, can you put it in as a, can you get chunk of Trump organized?
I think we should do a chunk of Trump here, Mark.
Albert, thank you.
Tom's.
Open wide. Ready? Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Trump's businesses are raking in millions of dollars from Republican political campaigns, including his own campaign. This from CNN. Late last year, former President Donald Trump announcing his endorsement of car dealership owner Bernie Moreno for Ohio's Senate seat, elevating an untested candidate who'd never held public office over several other more prominent Republicans. But again, Trump endorsed Bernie Moreno. Well, 2 days later, Moreno's campaign spent about $17,000 at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Then followed up that expenditure, spending another $79,000 the next month, making him one of Mar-a-Lago's top political spenders. He wasn't alone. With glitzy Mar-a-Lago fundraisers and stays at Trump's hotels and flights on the former president's private jet, Republican candidates and political groups are on track to spend more on Trump businesses this year than any other year except 2016 when he won the presidency. Trump himself has been the biggest spender both this year and over the last decade. And again, when we say that he's been the biggest spender, it's coming out of his campaign coffers. Between his 3 presidential campaigns, Trump and the associated political groups have funneled more than $28 million in campaign donations to his businesses.
Isn't that illegal?
No, it's not.
What?
In fact, it actually would be okay if he were to lose for PAC money anyway to be used in any way that he wanted. It doesn't go away. It's a weird thing.
Isn't it specifically for campaigns?
Well, these are campaign expenditures. You can probably explain them that way.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, you have campaign officials staying at Mar-a-Lago. There are any number of ways to explain an expenditure like that. I'll remind
What a
you that
racket.
in 2016, Donald Trump had the Republican elect Trump MAGA office take up 2 floors, I believe, of Trump Tower, charge them a premium, charge them, meaning him, but it was coming from them, a premium. That was a way to generate revenue. So it's all very easy to frame in some kind of political way, some kind of election way. Some of the candidates, though, who've spent the most money on Trump's businesses in recent years have been new politicians who won the former president's endorsement despite a lack of past electoral experience or success, like Moreno, the guy I first mentioned to you. Herschel Walker's another one. Carrie Lake is a third, right? So this is a huge developing story, and you find federal campaigns and PACs in the first half of this year spending nearly $3.2 million on different Trump businesses. More than 80% of that came from Trump's own campaign and the associated groups. So this is something to watch. Endorsees spend big. When Trump endorses someone, there is money flowing back. Trump has changed the arithmetic and the strategies to account for the ability to essentially money yourself in all of these different fashions. That's Breaking Story. I'll put it up on my Twitter feed, and you can find it too. Just Google it, and you'll see all the different ways. We used to detail. I went through the whole thing with the Scotland place, the Mar-a-Lago place, the Bedminster place, most of all the Trump Hotel. That was the way that Trump could easily money everyone who had potential business before the legislature, Congress, or Trump himself. You'll note it before the T-Mobile merger. T-Mobile rented out a couple stories of the Trump Hotel. The Saudis were regular visitors of the Trump Hotel. They would rent out entire floors and never use them. It was simply a way of pouring money into the former president's coffers. But the latest is a pretty good breakdown of funneling more than $28 million to his businesses. And that's just so far this year. That's your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Albert, I think we need to tee up Florida. How is Florida today?
Florida's great. It's going to be a little shorter, but I'm going to push the good stories for next week. So
All right. So Albert's turning down the
I had to make
the
some
flame on
executive-
Florida.
Yeah,
kind
I had
of
to
a-
make some decisions here.
Ah, okay. Well, you can make these decisions quickly. I'll just mention that one of the things that was rumored last night, just as sort of an adjunct to the DNC, an adjunct is a ding word, the appearance of Taylor Swift was talked about.
She didn't come.
They talked about the fact that her plane was spotted in Chicago.
Mm.
Then it segued from Taylor Swift to Beyonce, right? And then it was noted that her plane was in Chicago.
Yeah.
So her manager had to take to X or Twitter or whatever and say, Beyonce is not performing at the DNC. There are no plans for her to perform. So in a way, it was a buildup sort of to Kamala Harris because everybody was, including Courtney, she was watching to see Taylor Swift show up. And Kamala, and she was quite impressed with Kamala Harris, but you know she didn't do any Taylor Swift
That's
numbers.
one way to get the Bayhive and all the Swifties to watch.
Yeah.
Just tease a possibility, and all of them are going to stand by and watch. So
Exactly.
What about Pink? Did you see Pink
Yeah.
and her
it's a
daughter?
wild idea, but it just might work.
I did not see the Pink performance. How was it?
Oh, it was incredible. It was Pink, her backup singers, and her daughter Willow, and they sang the song "What About Us," and it was so good and powerful.
Albert, you don't have a still of Pink that you can put up there? Now would be a good time to put it up if you can
It was-
possibly
it was
manage
really-
Albert, thank you.
Yeah.
It's 11. We got to get to Florida.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're saying screw you, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm on to Florida. All right. Well,
Yeah.
as the administrator of Florida, I can certainly understand why that would be your priority, sir. All right. Smash the like button like a boss. There is more to come, and Florida is next. First, this 60-second timeout.
The Mark Thompson Show. Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, girl, baby girl, don't even play.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
I did everything right and they indicted me. I misspoke. I stand corrected. My words upset so many people. My bad. I'm sorry.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
That was very inappropriate.
I'm a better looking
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you.
I only like people that like me.
Put that coffee down.
I've never seen anything
There's never
like
been
it.
anything like this.
Yeah, you know it. You know it. Thanks, everybody who's joined our Patreon and PayPal crew, the community that really supports this show, in addition to super stickers and super chats for a crowd-funded show. And Patreon and PayPal is the way you do it. In fact, I have a new Patreon member to shout out. You know, I like to shout him out.
Big shout out.
Whims by Lori B. How about it? For $25 a month supporter at Patreon.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
I'm not going to cry, but I've got to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And I'd like to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you.
Really love all of you who've discovered Patreon and PayPal as ways to support the show. We are an NPR PBS type model, meaning if you like this, the way they used to say it at NPR, if you like this show and want it to continue, please, viewers like you, support this programming. So you go to Patreon and PayPal. There are links beneath this video and all our videos, and you can reach us that way and join our crew. Now, Albert is ready. I am ready. Kim is ready. Let's Florida it up. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
Deputies are saying they've busted a guy who has meth on him. And you may say, well, I mean, that's kind of a Florida thing to have meth.
Normal, yeah.
He was checking in at the time with his probation officer.
What?
Yes.
No.
Busted with meth while checking in with your probation officer is really a bad way to go. Brandon Lee Harris is 31 years old. He's from Defuniak Springs. There he is. And on the Mark Thompson Show booking photo meter or scale, I'll give him a 7.
I'm going 8.
No? Look
He's
at you.
got this look. He's got this like devil may care look.
He does. He
Yeah.
also looks a little defeated, which I understand.
Eh.
So he's charged with felony violation of probation, possession of methamphetamine, and possession of drug paraphernalia. It happened this week at the state probation office. It's there on Highway 90 in Defuniak Springs. If anyone's looking for that probation office there, that's where it is, right there on Highway 90, everyone. In any case, the office putting out a statement saying Brandon Lee Harris was attempting to conceal methamphetamine in a small plastic baggie, 2 syringes, and a nasal spray bottle.
Oh.
I don't understand why you would go into your probation meeting carrying all that stuff.
Maybe he thought that he'd been there before and they never checked his pockets.
No, that could be. He was scheduled to meet with his probation officer and, quote, admitted to knowing he had narcotics and paraphernalia on him before he arrived.
Maybe he just really was tired of being out and wanted to go back into prison.
Or, yeah, he just, as you say, it's like, I overlooked it. Sorry. I mean, hey.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. Should have left it outside in the grass. Doesn't sound like he's got, as Kim says, too much freedom ahead.
No.
A Florida woman throws a plate of ravioli at her sister. The reason for it is that the sister wouldn't share her food.
I mean, that's a great reason, right?
Well, if you need a reason, at least it's on brand. It's Clearwater, Florida, the home of Scientology. Nakia Davis, 21, arrested for throwing that ravioli at her sister. They were supposed to share food, you see, Kim. And the sister did not allow Davis to have any of the food they were supposed to share. Deputies say that she got mad and threw ravioli.
Must have been some good ravioli.
Yeah. She was processed.
That's an advertising tagline. Our ravioli's so good, you'll be fighting over it.
There's her booking photo. She looks kind of cute. I might give her a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some 9s and 7s here in the chat.
Yeah, I think that's a badass look. You look cute.
I'll give
Like,
her an 8.
after the neck tats also.
The name tats?
No, the neck tattoos.
The neck.
Oh, the neck tats. Yeah. I think they can look cool. I think the body ink can look cool. It can also be a sign. Anyway, she's selling it all good. I like the whole package.
Yeah,
I'm
we might
giving
have
her
to
an
add
eye.
into the Florida algorithm. If you have a neck tat, it's like the neck tat, the meth, the gators. We might have to add that in there.
Oh, there you go. Okay. But again, I would suggest don't judge too harshly people with neck tats. We've kind of gotten into that here once before. A 24-year-old man arrested, accused of stealing a vehicle, leaving the scene of a hit and run, failing to stop for law enforcement, and then crashing his vehicle into a tennis court fence. Dominic Garcia. There he is. He's also facing charges of battery on a person of 65 years of age or older and operating a motor vehicle without a valid license. There he is. That's it. Dominic Garcia. I want to give you a higher number, Dominic, but I can't. I'm topping out at 7. Kim? This is
I'm
for...
going to say maybe a 5. I'm not impressed.
Yeah, I see it. Show the damage, though, Albert. Can you show the car get quite the damage as a result of fleeing? A black Ford Expedition fleeing the scene of a hit and run.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal.
That's a tough
There he is
fence.
up against-
You'd think that a car could break through a fence like that, and it gets stuck at a tennis court fence. So maybe the tennis court fences are built a little differently.
Yeah, the tennis court fences are not what you think they are, Albert. They can be very strong. Anyway, he has been arrested and charged. A Florida man impersonating Dave Portnoy reviewed a pizza joint for several years to dupe tourists with undercooked food, according to cops. Now, Albert, can you explain to me Dave Portnoy? He's a pizza critic, right?
Yeah, he's the founder of Barstool Sports, very polarizing media group. But then he does these pizza reviews. They're really popular. They make or break pizza places, and a lot of people subscribe to this. And there's an app, and everybody loves the guy. So,
Yeah. And so apparently people are now impersonating him. At least one is. And he did this to fool unsuspecting tourists into ordering undercooked and fraudulently priced food. I don't understand really the plan. It seems like a twisted, evil plan. But Jose Marti Alvarez, who's 55, is the one who hatched it. He's accused of, quote, falsely advertising his business in hotels throughout Miami Springs, Florida. He advertised the business as the popular Roman's Pizzeria and was conning hungry customers into buying inedible food to make money off the shop's notoriety. There he is in a booking photo. He looks like a rough guy.
He does.
I'm giving him a 6.
I'm giving him a 5.
We have actually an alternate shot of this guy too, so we can him in the handcuffs.
There's the
Live on
what he's got going here is a situation.
He does look like he's more in a situation type thing with his hands handicapped, or what am I trying to say? Handcuffed behind his back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Handicapped.
He's handicapped by the handcuffing. Customers filed complaints against the actual pizza joint with the Better Business Bureau and negative reviews online, and that's what brought it to the attention of law enforcement. The owner of Roman's Pizzeria, Jesus Roman, said he's been dealing with the issue for years and first caught wind of the scam when upset customers started reacting out to his shop.
Karen says, how hard is it to make good pizza?
Yeah. He's in a tough spot. I mean, these guys were having to explain, hey, it's not us. He literally had to say, look, they would show up to the store and they'd have to explain, it's not us. They'd ask, where's the food? And the pizzeria that has been in question here that's sort of being defrauded has been around for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so Marty Alvarez was nabbed by the cops and booked into the correctional center down there. And finally, police wrangling an alligator on Florida resident's porch. I know many of you want your reptiles. You'll get it. Police in Florida put their reptile wrangling skills to the test. A 6-foot alligator, in this case, found trespassing on a resident's front porch. The Edgewater Police Department saying that officers worked together with Edgewater Animal Control to capture the alligator found on the porch of this Florida Shores home. And the alligator was not harmed and was turned over to a Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission.
It's a cute little gator.
Trapper.
Unless
yeah,
those
6
are
feet is not
human beings.
6 feet is not massive, but it's you don't want to see it on your front porch still. We don't like to do it. We don't want to do it. But we must choose a favorite. In the chat, you have options, and I will review for you here, listening and watching, some of the stories you've just heard, and you can decide on a favorite. Please indicate your favorite in the chat. After the show is done, we do check to see what people's favorites have been. Florida man busted with meth while he was checking in with his probation officer. The Florida woman who threw the ravioli at her sister because her sister wouldn't share. The Florida man speeding from deputies in a stolen car gets trapped in a tennis court fence. The Florida dude impersonating Dave Portnoy, reviewing pizza for several years to dupe tourists with undercooked food. And finally, the police wrangling an alligator on a Florida resident's front porch. We need to pick a favorite. Kim, I ask you, what's your fave?
I like the sister ravioli fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Sister ravioli fight. Nobody got really badly hurt.
Ravioli smackdown.
Kim, how are you?
Albert, how about your fave?
Well, leading in the chat is the guy who I think should be the number one, the guy who brought the meth to the probation office. It's just incredibly Florida with the meth, but even bringing it while you're seeing your probation officer screams Florida. So, and that's leading half of the votes.
Yeah, I completely agree. To me, it's a walk going away. Florida guy busted with meth and paraphernalia on him while he's meeting with the probation officer. As Kim had suggested, maybe he didn't think they were going to check his pockets or whatever, but it doesn't matter. Dude, take 2 hours off of your meth addiction, leave the stuff at home, and meet with your probation officer. So
it gives off that, remember that guy who was driving around when he had a suspended license? It gave me that kind of feelings. I love that story, and I love this kind of story too.
Indeed, indeed. That's Friday Fabulous Florida.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
I want to tell you what's going to happen. Kind of an exciting hour is ahead. Kim's News is next. We will visit a little bit of what happened last night because it was a momentous night for a party that pivoted off of an incumbent candidate and jumped to this relatively, certainly in comparison, unknown candidate who now has to define herself and define the race in this short time. And the remarkable thing about all of this is that the Democrats have done that successfully. That's not to say they'll win, but they've certainly done it successfully. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I think it'll likely show up in Kim's News. That said, I'll be here for another few minutes, and then I've got to jump over to iHeartRadio and KFI in Los Angeles, and I've got to do that. But I will be listening the entire time, Kim, so I don't want you to feel as though...
You're trying to make me nervous?
Yeah, I don't want you to feel like you can just mess around, you know what I mean?
Got to keep us on track.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So if Kim's News is lengthy, which would be great, I love it. I tell Kim this, and I'm going to tell the audience what I tell you. I think the best part of the show is Kim's News. I mean, now this might be because I'm full of self-loathing and all this sort of, but I would tell you that I love your news. There are things I wish we could do in your news for the future, and maybe we can if we could get more money into the show. Then I can build certain ways to have elements in your news that we just can't have right now. But even as it is right now, I love it. I just think it's great.
What kind of elements? I'm interested. What do you got?
Well, I got like visual elements, really, primarily.
Okay.
But that said, I just so enjoy the news, and I love that we have a chance to comment on it and that others can comment. And it's both loose, but also it has a coherence to it that I really like as well. So that said, we will...
This will probably be our only news. So let's just supersize this. Let's
supersize this news. All right. So you're going to supersize it, and then coming out on the other side, I may have danced out. But I don't know. Let me just see. I wanted to see if there's unrest in the chat that I need to handle. What is this? You'll tell me, Albert, if I have to handle some unrest in the chat. I am prepared with yellow cards and red cards. So I think it looks to me like it's pretty much the basic trolls that we don't have to worry about.
We did have some. Maybe we should do some shout outs.
Oh my God! Yes, Albert. Why have you been sitting on these things?
Albert, thank you.
My God. Nutritionist Liz, my favorite nutritionist. Come on, nutritionist Liz. A $5 super chat just popping in, she says. Chick-fil-A's real reality show is what happens to the chickens. I don't put being vegan on people, but knowledge is powerful. Yeah, I will say this, and we don't wave our finger about this, but chickens it's tough because so many creatures are so horribly treated, but there are almost no laws protecting chickens. And what happens to them is horrifying. So that is a callback, though, to yesterday. Because yesterday, I guess Chick-fil-A is doing their own reality channel or something. Isn't that right?
Yeah, they've got a network.
Service, right? Streaming?
Yeah, new streaming service, right. Yeah.
So nutritionist Liz is saying, hey, I got a reality show for you. Show us what really happens to those poor chickens that you, So Wes hits us with a $5 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Wes. Big shout out. You're always a big supporter of ours, and we appreciate it. Rampage Radio SF, what up?
Big shout out.
Big shout out for a $5 super sticker. Thank you.
Nice.
And as I mentioned earlier, we had a new Patreon subscriber and supporter. It's really a community of people supporting us on Patreon and PayPal. We'll give out more shouts next week for those who are so great that way. I would guess an alternate could join the last meetup, Murphy says, because I never showed up. Work was just crazy that night. Yeah, I think that is what happened, Murphy. Murphy didn't make it, and we could then move an alternate in. So our meetup is next Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30 Pacific time. And it's Nikki Maduro, Pat Thurston, John Rothman, Spencer Christian. It's everybody you want to talk to, Jim Avila, Michael Shore. So hope you can make it. We'll send you a Zoom link, and you can just join us after you give us a $50 donation to the show on PayPal, and then drop us a note saying that you've done it. Sausalito Steve, $10 super sticker,
Big
super
shout
chat.
out.
Thank you. And Noe Marie. Noe Marie with a super sticker for 10. And
Big shout out.
Noe Marie will be at the meetup. I remember seeing her name on the list.
I know.
So,
Hi,
I know.
Yep.
Former KGOer. She can tell us the inside stories of KGO. Yes. Looking forward to that. All right, smash the like button if you would, like a boss.
Smash it with
Smash
your
it with your
iron
iron
rod.
rod. Come on. Costs you nothing, means a lot. Share the show, help us grow the show. Kim's News next as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Vice President Kamala Harris is now officially the Democratic national candidate. Democratic National Convention? No, Democratic candidate for President of the United States. Now, she and her running mate, Tim Walz, will not be appearing in public today. She did accept the party nomination last night at the DNC in Chicago. Alongside vice presidential candidate and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Harris-Walz ticket is expected to focus in the coming weeks on the key battleground states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Big happenings, though, in the Trump campaign today as well. The former president is expected to get an endorsement from independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today. We know this because Kennedy has filed the paperwork to drop out of the race and is scheduled to make an announcement in Phoenix at any moment. Former President Trump also in the Grand Canyon State today for a campaign rally and has teased a special guest. So it looks like today is the day for the switcheroo. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says the central bank is ready to cut interest rates. Speaking at the Fed's annual gathering in Jackson Hole, Wyoming today, Powell said the time has come for policy to adjust. Now, Powell didn't specify the timing nor the size of the cuts, but the Fed is widely expected to begin cutting interest rates come September. Reports say that at least 5 Secret Service agents are being placed on administrative leave related to the assassination attempt on former President Trump last month. One of those placed on leave is the special agent in charge of the Pittsburgh office. Fox News was reporting today that more agents are likely to be included in this. This as the agency's Internal Affairs Division continues to investigate how the gunman was able to get off 8 rounds while Trump was speaking in Pennsylvania. The United States will be restarting that whole get your COVID test program at home for free. The health officials announcing today that the program will be relaunched ahead of the holiday season as families begin to spend more time indoors. The decision comes as COVID hospitalization and death rates have spiked in the United States recently. On Thursday, the FDA approved an updated COVID vaccine from Moderna and Pfizer, which targets the current variants. Keeping guns out of the hands of convicted felons. A state appeals court upheld that California law yesterday, which also bans them from having ammunition. The court says these laws were based on centuries of history, even though the ban here only dates back to 1923. The ruling could still be appealed to the state Supreme Court. The man accused, speaking of crime, of starting California's 4th largest wildfire ever will stay behind bars. A judge ordering that yesterday after Ronnie Stout pleaded not guilty to arson. Prosecutors say he was seen pushing a burning car into a gully last month near Chico, and then those flames spread, starting the park fire. Stout's lawyer says she may be able to prove that he didn't do it on purpose. The 42-year-old has 2 previous felony convictions. If found guilty, he could face up to 25 years to life under California's 3 strikes law. Speaking of that park fire, more families affected by the fire are on alert. They may have to evacuate again this week because of wet weather, because a flash flood warning starts today right where that fire burned through Butte and Tehama counties, and the flames are still going. Tomorrow marks 1 month of crews on the front lines. They just reached 63% containment. The fire tops 429,000 acres. It has destroyed 641 homes and buildings.
And what is the containment on that?
The containment is 63%.
Jeez.
And now we've got flash flood warnings. So everyone in the burn scars, they have to leave their homes again. Yeah, I know, right? Speaking of those, and I mentioned, Mark, those COVID vaccines, the FDA has approved 2 updated versions from Pfizer and Moderna, and they could be available by next week. These are more effective against the latest variants that are making people sick. The state's summer wave still surging, though. Coronavirus levels in the wastewater reaching some of the highest since 2022. Officials say the vaccination rate here is only about 15%.
No, I have already had it. I already had the latest variant. But I'm
Yeah,
still
I
worried
know.
about getting it again. I don't know. There are many examples of reinfection.
It's the day to weigh in on safety issues across Oakland. Mayor Sheng Tao is holding the first of 5 town hall meetings to hear from residents and business owners about their concerns. Boy, is she getting ready to get an earful. It comes as the city is dealing with another shooting, right? I mean, come on.
That's true.
Does she really want to go out there and hear it? Police say 1 person was killed, several others injured last night near Ney and Parker Avenues, the same block as a resource center sits. More details on that are expected to be released today, but we've got this shooting, crime in Oakland, and now we have the safety meeting, so that'll be interesting. Cruise is partnering with Uber. Starting as soon as next year, robo-taxis from the GM-owned company will be available in test cities for customers to hail driverless rides on the Uber app. The announcement comes as Cruise attempts to regain its footing after ceasing operations due to one of its robo-taxis dragging a pedestrian 20 feet in San Francisco last October. Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, that was a bad look for sure. By the way, Tony LaDowdy sent us a super chat, Kim.
Oh, that's
and,
nice.
we're committed to getting the super chats on the air.
Big shout out.
And give him a shout out. If Trump suddenly had a stroke, is his super chat. Didn't mean to interrupt your news, but
No,
again,
go
this is
ahead.
a super chat. If Trump suddenly had a stroke and couldn't run, what would happen then? Would it be Kamala versus Nikki Haley? It's a really good question. I would likely, I don't know who would move to top of ticket. I don't know that there is, it's very hard to get on the ballot in many places, and you'd have to rework it. So I suspect J.D. Vance might move to top of ticket. It's a really interesting.
Can you imagine him in charge of the country? That would be wild.
But you would have to refigure that ticket somehow,
Yikes.
Tony. So it's a good stumper. I'm not so sure what would happen. You could possibly add Nikki Haley, but I suspect, again, it might be tribal elders that would have something to do with that decision-making process. And as I say, you'd have to rework that ticket. However you did it, it would likely still say Trump J.D. Vance on there. So, in any case.
Oops, did you see this one? Candace as well.
Oh, I didn't.
Where is it?
Please. Candace, yes, I did.
yeah.
Thank you, Candace. Big shout out. Thank you for a $10 super sticker.
Yeah.
And in recognition of that, I am going to listen to the rest without commenting. I will listen to the rest of Kim's news. I'm looking forward to that. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody on Monday. But I am listening, Kim, so please continue.
Happy KFIing to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sales of new single-family homes surged in July. New government figures show a 10.6% increase above the revised June rate of 668,000 units. It's also more than 5.5% above the rate from a year ago. And industry experts say rising inventory and lower mortgage rates help drive sales. The average sale price of a new house sold in July, just under $515,000. Clearly not in California. TMZ is acknowledging it got it wrong with its reporting that Beyoncé would be performing on the final night of the Democratic National Convention. Oops, the celebrity gossip outlet claimed the Grammy-winning superstar would sing before Vice President Kamala Harris accepted the Democratic presidential nomination inside of Chicago's United Center. The site was forced to admit it got this one wrong as the event wrapped up Thursday.
I'm sorry.
Indeed, without an appearance from Beyonce. So that didn't quite work out. No Beyonce.
Wild idea, but it just might work.
No Beyonce, no Taylor Swift, but we got Pink and quite a great day 4 at the DNC. The second largest diamond ever found was dug up this week. It happened in Botswana. This is a handful, this diamond. It's pretty good looking. All right, I have a picture of it. You guys ready? In case, you're wondering what the world's second largest diamond looked like. Yeah, it takes up a whole hand at least. The 2,492 carat stone pulled out of the Karowe mine by Canadian company.
There's never been
Lucara
anything like
Diamond.
this.
Its size would make it the second largest diamond found behind the 3,106 carat Cullinan diamond discovered in South Africa in 1905. Just in case, you're keeping track of such things. That's a pretty big diamond. Yeah, that'll make a lot of rings or a giant pendant. I don't know what. This report is sponsored by the amazing people at Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore, and they have some really, really fun events going on, including one of their grape stomps. And I have to tell you that we've got some video of the grapes.
Okay, Stacy and Jason, what are you guys doing?
I'm falling apart in grapes. I love Lucy.
You're stomping grapes just like Lucy. So do the do-si-do like they did in the episode, you guys.
This is awesome.
What does it feel like?
Squishy brain.
Squishy brains. Ooh. Look at them in action, you guys. They are in action. Woohoo!
So that is Tenuta Vineyards. They have the I Love Lucy Grape Stomp, and that is a wonderful event. You can check off your bucket list. It happens Sunday, September 8th, the September 15th, September 22nd, and again on the 29th. More grape stomps are coming to Tenuta Vineyards in October. You arrive at about 10 in the morning. You've got a little mimosa while you wait for everyone to arrive, and then you go out into the vineyard. You get to cut some grapes off the vine. So that's going to be fun. Then you go in to enjoy a nice catered lunch, followed by the stomp. Bring a towel to dry off your feet after the stomping because you do get kind of icky. So maybe, wearing the white skirt isn't such a good idea. But they have space limited. If you want to go do this, and it sounds like such a fun event, you can text Rich at 925-699-4576 to pay and secure your reservation. So it's $55 per person. If you're a wine member at Tenuta,
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Oh, yeah. Wine available by the glass, the bottle, or the flight. Beer by the pint during the lunch as well. So really, really fun. And by the way, in addition to the grape stomp, anything you get at Tenuta Vineyards, whether it's an event that you're going to, whether you're ordering a case of wine, a bottle of wine, there's a Mark Thompson Show 10% off discount. All you have to do is say, smash it with your iron rod, either by email or by phone, 925-699-4576, or you can email Rich,
iron rod.
Rich at tenutavineyard.com. Just say smash it with your iron rod, just like that, and you get your 10% off. So a show exclusive discount, a really fun time at the winery, amazing wine, including my favorite, Why Are You Yelling Red, which is the Mark Thompson wine, and Tenuta Winery it's a great place to be. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Is that what you call him? You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar. Your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No, no, no.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Thompson heads off to fill in at KFI if you're in Southern California. Make sure you're listening. But a little bit of breaking news, and we knew it was coming because we knew the paperwork had been filed for the suspension of the presidential candidacy of RFK Jr. And now it's official. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he is suspending his campaign for the presidency. He is throwing his support to Trump. He said 3 great causes drove him to enter this race in the first place. The principal causes that persuaded him to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. And now he says to throw his support to Trump. And he says, big surprise here, that Trump has asked to enlist him in his administration. He said that Trump is suggesting the two join forces as a unity party. This quote is crazy. He said, RFK Jr., "We talked about Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals. The arrangement would allow us to disagree publicly and privately and furiously if need be on issues over which we differ while working together on these existential issues upon which we are in concordance." So we know that allegedly RFK Jr. went to Vice President Kamala Harris and said, "What kind of job will you give me if I throw my support to you?" And then he went to Trump and said, "What kind of job will you give me if I throw my support to you?" Trump must have been the only one to bite on that deal. And so here we have it. And now RFK Jr. plans to campaign with Trump. They're going to be going around the country together. So there you have it.
He is live right now if you want to just check out what he has to say, Kim.
Is it worth it?
That's up to you, Kim. You're driving this bus.
Yeah, my news judgment says no. It's clear that if you sell your soul, and the only reason you've gotten into the race is so you can sell your support for the best job that you can get, I think it didn't matter which administration offered him. Whoever had the best deal is the one he was going to take, which means to me that his words don't mean very much. So let's move on. Let's do a little bit of law and disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Well, this is mighty unfortunate. A California hospital lost a woman's body and then told the family she left. According to a lawsuit, a California hospital failed to inform a mother that her 31-year-old daughter had died in the hospital's care and then misplaced her body for a year as family members desperately tried to find this woman. This according to a lawsuit filed in Sacramento County. the mother and the two sisters of Jesse Peterson, who died in April of 2023 at Mercy San Juan Medical Center in Carmichael, said they were told that Jesse left of her own accord. In actuality, her body had been forgotten in cold storage. Yikes. Peterson grew up in Sacramento. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 10. She had a diabetic episode in April of last year and was admitted to the hospital, where she previously had gone for diabetes-related care. 2 days later, she calls her mom from the hospital asking to be picked up. Less than 2 hours later, she died at the hospital of cardiac arrest while suffering from diabetic ketoacidosis, according to her death certificate. Jesse's family was not notified of her passing, despite extensive previous contact between the hospital and Jesse's family, according to the lawsuit the family has filed. Instead, they say the mother was allegedly told by hospital staff that Jesse left against medical advice. Meanwhile, her body had been placed on shelf number Red 22A and forgotten. In the following months, the family searches high and low for her. They're posting flyers. They're talking to her friends. They're going to homeless communities. They're filing a missing persons report with the county and the State Department of Justice. More than a year after Jesse died, April of 2024, a detective allegedly called the mother, informing her that her daughter was found dead in a warehouse morgue at Mercy San Juan Medical Center. A few days later, the body was recovered by family, but the remains so decomposed they couldn't have an open casket for this funeral. The state of the body also meant that no autopsy could be carried out to prove or disprove medical malpractice. So
there's got to be someone at that hospital like, hey, this body's been in here for quite a long time.
Why is this one still here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a civil suit now, Albert. It's brought against the hospital operator's Dignity Health, accusing the defendants of negligent handling of a corpse, infliction of emotional distress, and a violation of California's health safety codes. So there you go. Yeah, that's awful.
I wonder what David Katz would say about that. Guilty.
I think the family's got a pretty good case. How about this guy, this winner? This is a Kentucky man who was jailed for 9 years after faking his death to avoid child support. Prosecutors said Jesse Kipf, who was divorced in 2008,
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Used the login details of a doctor to register himself as deceased in Hawaii. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison for computer fraud and aggravated identity theft after he attempted to skip out on his outstanding child support obligations. Yikes, look at that guy. The U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky said Kipf accessed Hawaii's death registry system in January of last year, created a case for his own death, completed a worksheet for the death certificate. As a result, he was registered as deceased in several government databases. Wow. After his arrest in November, he admitted he did this in part to avoid paying child support, and then he pled guilty to both charges. So
I mean, that's a lot of hustle, and it looked great on paper. I felt like he had all the steps correct. I think.
I mean, it could have worked. Let's go back to medical malpractice, because what about this one? This hospital lost part of this man's synthetic skull and misplaced it. So here's how this works. This man underwent surgery, this man from Georgia, 2 years ago for a brain bleed. And he had to have part of his skull temporarily removed, and was then charged thousands of dollars after medical staff lost this part of his skull.
What?
And they had to use a synthetic material to replace it instead. This is a 62-year-old guy named Fernando Cluster. This whole thing is a cluster. He's admitted to Emory University Hospital in Atlanta in 2022, and he undergoes this decompressive hemicraniotomy, which is a surgery to relieve the pressure on the brain. According to a lawsuit they filed last month, the medical procedure involved removing a 12 by 15 centimeter portion of his skull, known as a bone flap. The bone flap was scheduled to be surgically replaced during a cranioplasty the following month. Problem: workers at the hospital were unable to find Cluster's bone flap at the time of his follow-up surgery. The hospital is not responding to requests for a comment. They have not responded to his court filings. They say they located the bone flap the day before Cluster's surgery, but they couldn't find it when actually preparing for the operation the next day. They said they inspected the freezer where they store the bone flaps. They couldn't find the one with his ID on it. There were several others, nice, with incomplete or missing patient identification, but they couldn't be certain which, if any of those, belonged to Mr. Cluster. So hospital staff told him they had to reschedule his cranioplasty until a synthetic implant flap could be made. So the client was then forced to remain hospitalized due to this delay, and then they charged him for every day he stayed in the hospital, even though he had to stay there because of their mistake. The surgery eventually took place, but then he developed an infection from the synthetic flap and had to undergo an additional surgery. He has been charged more than $220,000 for all of the medical expenses related to his visit, including the cost of the synthetic bone flap, which he wouldn't have needed if they had kept track of the one that was his. Come on.
I'm not going to show the pictures. We had the picture here, but I made an executive decision to not show the picture.
I think it's a smart choice. They say it's shocking that a medical provider like Emory would lose part of one of its patients' skulls and then refuse to accept responsibility.
And he paid, how much did he pay? $220,000.
$220,000 in medical bills. Absolutely. Is that wild? Yeah. And an infection that he had to undergo, pain and suffering for a whole nother surgery. Wild.
There's never been anything like this.
How about, let's do one more story.
Michael just got here. Kim,
I
just want to let you know.
See it. Let's do one more story because this is a really good one out of Oakland. This is the last one in the series. And it's bystanders this week, I believe, held a suspected hit-and-run driver until police had the chance to arrive in this deadly hit-and-run crash. This one happened in Oakland on Monday. This man was surrounded by bystanders after allegedly attempting to flee the scene, this according to police. The man involved in multiple accidents, apparently killed a 17-year-old resident in all of this. And finally, at the end, there's pedestrians that ended up coming out and holding him until police could arrive. And here's what they say. This lifelong resident in Oakland, Dante Sean is his name, said pedestrians rallied around the suspect after he saw a man crash into 3 vehicles speeding down 82nd and International Boulevard. And here's what he said. He said, "I grew up in Oakland all my life, and I've never seen a car drive that fast." He was among this group of passerbys confronting this man as they believe he was trying to exit the scene of this crash. The man appeared to have blood on his face and denied driving the car, even though they knew he did it. He said he tried to blend in and act as if he wasn't driving the vehicle, but he couldn't really explain it all the way, and he was bleeding from his forehead down to his face. So multiple bystanders attempt to have this man sit down on the passenger side of his suspected vehicle. And then he and bystanders saw a bottle and a beer in the cup holder of the vehicle. He said it was just a mess. Music blaring, the Bluetooth in. They said, "We tried to pull the door open to pop the hood because when he first stopped, it was smoking so badly. There was antifreeze dripping steadily from the bottom." And then he said the community took the situation into their own hands for the police. He said, it's crazy that he crashed on the same block where officers were and that the pedestrians actually had to do that. He said it doesn't make sense. The police were already patrolling in the area. He said they had to hold him for 10 minutes while waiting for authorities to arrive after he saw officers patrolling on the same block. Welcome to Oakland. So there you go. Thanks to the passersby, they have this man in custody. And that Well done, Oakland. That is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
It is time now to welcome in the Culture Blaster. This guy has watched so many movies this week, he is prepared to rock his segment. Michael Snyder, everybody. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Welcome to the show, Michael Snyder. Hello.
Well, hi, Kim, and hi, Albert, and hi, Mark in absentia, Michael Store, wherever he is. I don't know where these guys are. So the DNC was A-OK, didn't you think?
I loved it. I'm going through a withdrawal. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself tonight.
I don't know. With all the talk about Beyonce or Taylor Swift or Springsteen or Dylan showing up, it did turn out that the surprise guest on this final night of the convention was Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. I guess the only person that thought she was a surprise would probably be the right-wing troll who expected the Democrats to try and sneak Michelle Obama or Gavin Newsom in there as the candidate instead of Kamala. There was a lot of talk about that online, and I always thought that was kind of nuts, you know.
Interesting. Yeah. Nope. We're Kamala all the way. That's it.
Well, let's get down to some movies because that's why I'm here.
Right. Let's do it. What do you got first?
Okay, in 1994, a little history here. The Crow, starring Brandon Lee, adapted a well-regarded graphic novel and told the tale of a musician and his fiancée who are brutally murdered by some gang members. And on the anniversary of their death, Eric, the musician, rises from the grave and takes on the mantle of the Crow, a seemingly invulnerable avenger who I suppose is going to do what he can to, I don't know, bring back his beloved Shelley. I don't know what the, for whatever purpose, there he is, you know, combating evil and trying to bring her back. But unfortunately, Lee himself died an untimely death, giving a more mystical vibe to the movie in its aftermath than the movie itself had. And there were sequels, minus the late Lee and his character. And they were rolled out in 1996 and 2000 to minimal impact. So now it's 30 years later. And there's a remake of the original with Bill Skarsgård, son of Stellan, brother of Alexander, and I guess best known to date as Pennywise the Clown in the remake of Stephen King's It and its sequel, as a reimagined Eric. This Eric isn't a musician, but is instead a tormented delinquent from a troubled background. In fact, the whole deal is reimagined as Eric's great love, Shelley, is the musician here, albeit one with some ugliness in her own past. And she's played by the British pop singer FKA Twigs.
I've never heard of her.
That's her name.
Okay.
And they meet at a prison-like rehab center, and it's a co-ed rehab center, except, you know, the women and the men can't sit together in the cafeteria. In any event, my God, they come together in this rehab center, and they go on the run because Shelley is being targeted by a literally hellish villain played by Danny Houston, the great Danny Houston. So a little class brought to the event when you have Danny there in his finery. And in the process, Eric and Shelley fall in insta-love. And that romance, such as it is, takes up at least the first half of this movie in a very sluggish manner as director Rupert Sanders lets the whole affair meander. And when the twosome is finally confronted by the bad guys' thugs and Eric is unleashed as the Crow on a mission to save Shelley, it's almost too late. That said, the last third of the movie may appeal to action fans. On the strength of that climactic section, one of my reviewing peers called this iteration of the Crow a gothic John Wick. And, you know, that's fair, but it's insufficient to earn a recommendation from me. I mean, John Wick is fire. This was like an ember that needed to be hosed down.
Does that mean it's really gory and like gruesome?
there are moments of, slash and burn
Yeah.
and blood.
Okay.
Look, Skarsgård is as good as he could be, considering the murky, muddy proceedings and the rules of crowdom. His powers and the afterlife in general are pretty vague. Yeah, Houston is Houston with limited screen time, and FKA Twigs, she's there. That's about the best you can say. I won't be eating crow when I say that this version of The Crow doesn't come anywhere near matching the cult appeal of the original 1994 film. That said, it is in theaters.
Well done. Well done.
Well,
all right. What else did you watch?
I have some good movies to recommend.
Please.
Prepare yourself. Okay, for her first feature film project, Behind the Camera, actress Zoe Kravitz has co-written and directed, speaking of hell, a hell of an entertaining thriller with savvy subtext galore. It's called Blink Twice, although you're not going to want to blink too much or you're going to miss a few twists and turns that go down. The premise is quite 21st century. A tech billionaire named Slater King, played in perfectly unctuous fashion by Channing Tatum,
they're engaged, right?
Tatum and Zoe Kravitz?
Yeah.
I don't read Us Weekly. I'm sorry. I can't answer that question.
Okay.
So anyway, the premise of Blink Twice is very 21st century. You got this tech billionaire, right? And he's played by Tatum, and he is so rich. Go ahead, ask me, Kim.
How rich is he?
He has his own private island, like Richard Branson and Mark Zuckerberg, and who knows who else in the 1%. And it's a good thing, too, because this character, King, was accused of questionable, cancel-worthy behavior in the past, and at least for a time, he stepped back from actively running his megalithic company and instead spent most of his time on the island. But as the movie begins, he's attempting to regain control of his business after the public shaming has gone down, and saying he's a new man. He holds a fundraising gala intended to burnish his image. And there, King encounters a cocktail waitress named Frida, played by Naomi Ackie, and her friend Jess, played by Aaliyah Shawkat, and invites them to join him and his friends for an extended getaway vacation on the island, right? All fun and frolic in paradise until Frida and Jess notice things going slightly awry. Now, I'm not going to say that all hell breaks loose, like a Lord of the Flies theme party, but stuff happens and it's freaky. King's friends and associates are played by, among others, get ready, Christian Slater, Adria Arjona, Kyle MacLachlan, Haley Joel Osment, and Gina Davis. So it's an awesome ensemble that means business, and everybody is on board regardless of the size of the role. And Ackie and Shawkat are great audience surrogates when the craziness commences. Kravitz has a lot to say here about wealth, privilege, gender roles, cancel culture, exploitation, and the wages of hedonism. In fact, she has so much to say in such a rapid-fire manner that not all of it may come through, but what does land is gripping and sometimes darkly funny. Blink Twice isn't, a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. It's a poke in the brain. And if it's not a perfect poke, it's a welcome one. Blink Twice is in theaters. Good for Zoe Kravitz.
So in all of this, I'm trying to figure out what kind of genre this movie would be categorized in. Would you say it's a psychological thriller or a horror movie or what?
It's a little bit of both. It's a mystery. It's definitely a psychological thriller. There are horror elements, but that said, I thought it was pretty smart and a whale of fun.
Okay.
Now, a movie I liked even better. Are you ready?
Yes, bring it.
One of my absolute favorite movies of the year so far is Strange Darling, which is a lean, mean, and cleverly structured thriller about a serial killer on the loose in the boondocks, written and directed with boldness and confidence by J.T. Molnar. So in Strange Darling, a rugged and seemingly self-possessed guy picks up a cute, provocative, up for a good time gal, or she picks him up, and it doesn't matter who initiated the encounter, but things don't quite go as one might expect in the scenario. At least that's how it seems until it doesn't. It would do the movie a great disservice to reveal much more. Other than to say that the story is told in a very creative way that requires the viewer to play a little connect the dots, and the whole enterprise gets wilder and wilder and more surprising as it goes on. I will say that the movie's central performances by Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner are first rate. I mean, they kill it, so to speak. And I can't wait to see what they do next. Fitzgerald, in particular, blew me away. And the supporting players are led by the ever reliable Ed Begley Jr. and Barbara Hershey, superb, as a wholesome hippie couple who live in relative quietude amid the splendor of nature. And speaking of the views, the cinematography is spiffy, and it is, in fact, the work of actor Giovanni Ribisi, who you may recall from Boiler Room, the Avatar movies, and as Phoebe's brother in Friends. And he is apparently skilled, man. Seems like he has some serious skill on both sides of the camera. But ultimately, this is filmmaker Molnar's triumph. The best accolade that I can give Strange Darling is that I felt the same thrilling sense of discovery while watching it, and the same pleasure mulling it over afterwards as I felt regarding the Coen brothers' breakout movie Blood Simple. I'm not sure that Molnar will have as long and honored a career as the Coens, but Strange Darling suggests that he is trending that way. It's in select theaters, but Mark should get it, Courtney, the true crime aficionado, to watch it when it hits streaming at very, very least.
Absolutely. That's her kind of jam. That's good.
I think so. Let's see here. Okay, let's lighten up. We'll lighten up. Between the Temples comes from director and co-screenwriter Nathan Silver. It's not quite a May December tale about a younger man, in this case a cantor at a suburban synagogue, getting involved with an older woman, one who was his grade school teacher. It's more of a July-October thing, you know? In any case, the best thing about this movie is the rapport between Jason Schwartzman and Carol Kane as the two central figures. Angst-ridden unmarried cantor Ben, whose two Jewish mothers want him to find a wife and settle down, and free-spirited Carla, who, despite her advancing years, decides she wants to get bat mitzvahed and chooses Ben to instruct her in the Torah. So, as this unlikely pair grows closer, their respective families begin to freak the hell out. I mean, some of Between the Temples is damn funny. Some of it is sharp in how it skewers human foibles. Some of it is sweet in its examination of faith and love and decency. And some of it's cringy enough to inspire a funky tune that I would probably entitle Things That Make You Go Oi. You know, it was... All in all, it's hard to be down on such a good-natured, slightly screwball and unabashedly ethnic, but somehow universal comedy with genuine heart. Between the Temples is in select theaters. It was pretty good, you know?
Nice. All right.
Let's wrap up the movie segment by talking briefly about The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat, which is a drama, efficiently written, if a little familiar in a few of its tropes, very well directed and very well acted by a cast that includes, among others, Onjanu Ellis-Taylor, Sanaa Lathan, Uzu Aduba, Mekhi Phifer is in this, who he's really, really good. Julian McMahon, of all people, Vondi Curtis Hall, that old smoothie. And it's basically about, a bunch of women, three women, a trio of best buddies who meet when they're kids, essentially, and maintain this lifelong friendship. And through flashback, we see them when they're young. We see the trials and tribulations. We see them as they grow older. And again, it's a little familiar in a few of its tropes, but imagine Hallmark and BET co-produced the movie for both channels.
Is that this?
at Earl's All You Can Eat, but it's on Hulu, and it's a cut above some of what those aforementioned channels usually program. And again, the cast, so cool. The girls, when they're young, are dubbed the Supremes by Earl, and his diner is where they meet and continue to meet over time as they go through the kind of crises that people face over the course of a lifetime. And they are, of course, buoyed and supported by their friendship, which occasionally goes a bit awry, and nonetheless, they are solid and loving. And, again, hard to come down on something like this. I think for its market, people will really enjoy it.
All right, that's the Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. And that looks like it's on Hulu. What else is streaming?
Well, you know what? I like to occasionally refer to what's new and exciting in terms of series, television, whether streaming or network. But I'm going to talk about a couple shows that are on later seasons in their run. I finally got to watch the third season of Girls 5 Eva. Which is about the trials and tribulations of a now middle-aged girl group, one-hit wonders, who are on the comeback trail after a couple decades of obscurity. It was co-created by Tina Fey, who did, of course, 30 Rock and the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And it stars a real-life musician, one who's actually written for Broadway, Sarah Bareilles, as one of the quartet, who used to be a quintet until one of their members disappeared years ago. Busy Phillips as sort of the influencer of the group. Paula Pell as the group member who kind of went to seed but is still holding on to her relationship with the other women. And another professional, Renee Elise Goldsberry, as the big-time singer who kept working as a solo artist but never achieved the fame that they had with that first hit. So they reunite, and the show is about that. And it's funny and sharp, and it takes aim at the music business and features recurring appearances by the great Ashley Park as the now missing member of Girls 5 Eva. And Ashley Park is the wonderful foil and great singer on Emily in Paris. You may know her from that. And Andrew Reynolds.
She's got quite the voice. Pretty amazing.
She's a legit. She and Renee Elise Goldsberry are Broadway babies, and of course Sarah Bareilles is a singer-songwriter of some repute. And so you got real talent here, and there's new music, generally parodies, but new music virtually every week or every episode. And some of the guest stars have included Stephen Colbert, Vanessa Williams, Bowen Yang, Amy Sedaris, Richard Kind, and even series co-creator Tina Fey, who shows up as, are you ready? Dolly Parton. Anyway, Girls 5 Eva is on Netflix, and I recommend it. And I'll just wrap up quickly by saying season 12, I think, of Futurama is on Hulu. It's Matt Groening's second long-running animated sitcom after The Simpsons. It preceded his other show, Disenchanted. And Futurama is about life 1,000 years from now for the misfits working at Planet Express delivery service in New York. And it features great voice talent, funny people. Billy West as unfrozen 20th century delivery boy Philip J. Fry. Katie Segal as Leela, the rough and ready, one-eyed, purple-haired pilot of Planet Express. And John DiMaggio as Bender, the robot. And it turns out that Bender has always had the last name Rodriguez, and the first episode of the new season is called The One Amigo, and he goes down to Mexico to reconnect with his roots. And this stuff's crazy, but they take on all manner of contemporary issues. That particular episode skewered NFTs, for instance. And all the other characters are there: Professor Farnsworth, Dr. Zoidberg. If you know, you know. But
You're
Futurama,
so fun.
Very entertaining.
Yeah. Well, you are really fun. I have the best time listening to you and talking about all the movies and things. Are you doing anything else this weekend? Any sports? Any big music shows that are on tap for you?
I think I'm going to be watching Giants Mariners tonight.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, I am going to be in Los Angeles at the Constellation Club at the legendary Formosa restaurant, the longtime Chinese restaurant in Hollywood that was refurbished a few years ago. It used to be a major hangout for Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack and people like that. So the walls are tidy, but they're still replete with history. And it'll be co-entrepreneur Olivia's birthday, so I'm excited to go there and do a little dancing to space age discotheque music, like 60s and 70s deep cuts. Very exciting.
Fun. Well, happy dancing and happy baseballing, and have a great weekend. Thanks for all the movie reviews.
Hey, my pleasure, Kim, and thanks for being there. We'll see you guys next week, I hope.
Absolutely. Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster. You can find him at The Voice of San Francisco, I believe. It's called thevoicesf.org is where you can find him online. You'll find his writings there. And of course, at Culture Blaster is his handle, how you can find him online as well. Thank you, Michael Snyder. He comes and goes.
My pleasure. See you guys.
On a rainbow. There he goes. Bye, Michael Snyder. Have a great weekend.
You too, Jim. Bye.
Bye. One more quick story before we're off into the world, to the after party. But remember Clark Kent of the Olympics? Remember him? He wore his glasses, and then he took them off, and he got onto that vault, and he was amazing.
The gymnast, right?
The gymnast. His name is Steven Nettersick. And he is now the latest one to join Dancing with the Stars. So Clark Kent of the Olympics is coming on as a contestant for season 33. He's a 2-time Olympic medalist. He's known as the Clark Kent of the pommel horse, 25-year-old gymnast, and he is now going to be on Dancing with the Stars. He'll be competing for the Mirror Ball Trophy as well. He says, I'm so excited to be joining the new season of Dancing with the Stars. I'm a 2-time bronze medalist, and now, he says, I'm going after that mirror ball. So that'll be fun. Steven Dodorsic, Dancing with the Stars. I think he's pretty athletic. I tend to think that he'll do pretty well.
A lot of athletes tend to win that competition.
That's
so we'll
it.
see what happens. I'm always surprised when there's another season of Dancing with the Stars. I thought it was gone.
I guess
every time it comes around, I remember that it's still
they're still doing that. Yeah. Well, this is the Mark Thompson Show, and thank you so much for all the ways you support the show. We really appreciate all the contributions today. We've got a great show lined up for you on Monday. Gary Dietrich will be here, True Crime Corner with Courtney. That happens on Monday as well. And we hope you have a really great weekend. If you have the time, go on over to the After Party Live. Click subscribe, click like, and then stay for the show. We've got more movie reviews and some really fun stories as well. All right, everybody, thank you for spending time here on the Mark Thompson Show. Have a really good rest of your weekend.
Do you have anything planned this weekend,
Starts
Kim?
now.
As we're heading out?
Kid stuff. We're going to karate. We're going to do music lessons. This is my life.
Just a normal weekend.
Yeah.
We have football coming up, Kim, so I'm very excited. A lot of fantasy football chats coming up. So.
Are you watching the Giants game?
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
Not it.
I'm a red-blooded American. Yeah.
Football guy all the way.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day. See you next time on the Mark Thompson Show.